Good evening. My name is Francesca Amato Banfield, and I want to welcome you to Punished for Protecting. I am the founder of the National Coalition for Family Court and CPS Reform. And tonight, my guest is Gary Treistman, and I'm going to probably have to have Gary correct my pronunciation of his last name. He is the founder of Family Court Dads, and he is a father's rights advocate. And I'm going to put Gary on right now to talk to us a little bit about that. Thank you for coming, Gary.
Oh, thank you, Francesca. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
How
So
are
you
you?
can tell us.
What was your question? Did you ask me?
If you can tell us a little bit about Family Court Dads that you founded and why.
Sure. Well, when I first came into, actually drafted into family court, it's basically what they do is you have no choice. They just pull you in and they put you in an extortionate position, dangling your child in front of you. If you want to play, then you have the possibility of seeing your child. If you don't play, then they say, fine, we'll take your kid away, and that's the end of it. So that's like a Hobbesian choice where you are permitted to say, I don't want to deal with you, and then you lose your child. Or you say, okay, we're going to have to go through the maze and figure out the puzzle and let them do what they will with you in order to keep your child with you. Just have any contact with your kid. And it's never a guaranteed thing. At any moment, they can just say, oh, no, you can't see your kid anymore. And you say, but I've been a parent to that child for their whole life. They say, we don't care, it's fine with us. But if you don't want to be here, you don't want to play, then we're going to take away your child. And so it's always like a kidnapper's extortionate position that they're going to make you play. They're going to make you involve yourself and, in a sense, be drafted into the family court system, whether you want to or not. In answer to your question, how did I and why did I start Family Court Dads? Well, when this first happened to me, and this was a while ago, time goes by, it was 2011, February 2011, Valentine's Day, in fact, when my ex filed a temporary custody request from the family court. And I didn't even know it. I just got an order in the mail that said, you are no longer your child's father. For this temporary custody, we are going to grant it to her mother, to my child's mother. And you have no rights whatsoever to your own child anymore. From one day to the next, I was a full-blown father with all the rights of a parent. And then the next day, without any prior notice, without a hearing, without anything, I was completely stripped of being a parent. So it was just a complete blast. It was like, how did that happen? What did it, don't I get notice? Don't I get a chance to say no? And basically the answer is no, you do not get a chance to say no. I even followed it up with motions. I said, this is not fair. We've had co-custody since the child was born. I was there when she was born. I was there for every single day of her life. And why is it that suddenly whoever gets to the family court first, apparently, gets to have custody? We're talking temporary custody. The thing is, when they call it temporary custody, it is a beeline to custody, because once they have set up something temporarily, they don't want to change it. And so it becomes effectively true custody eventually. So as this went along, I was like, I had like the carpet, the rug just pulled out from underneath me. I felt like I was in quicksand. I said, how, what, where, why? And I tried to find any resources I could on the internet. I came across a few good books, but there was nobody really who could answer my questions. Eventually I had a lawyer, but even the lawyers, they don't really answer your questions directly. They have an agenda of their own. They will represent you as long as it doesn't conflict with the other two agendas they have. And so I was saying, this is crazy. And I said, I have to start something so that other fathers who are in my position would be able to have someplace to go to talk about it, and not just talk about it, but I call it Family Court Dads and it's organized as a kind of a legal powwow place where somebody might not just have a general question, but more specifically, you know, what do I do when they file this against me, and how do I respond to it? Just a meeting place where dads could get together and network what they do know. I mean, I know a lot about law. I kind of knew about law going into it, not family court law, but now I do know family court law. And so there are many things that I know that many fathers don't know. And there are people on the group who know things that I don't know, and I have gained from what they know. And so basically, it is a way to network and pool knowledge of all the dads who are being just eviscerated in family court, and their children being torn from them, to have a place to go and to actually have an effectivity to figure out what to do.
And Gary, one of the things, because I know you quite a few years now, and the moms advocates and your group are working together now because we're really looking for bridging that gap, us against family court versus moms against dads, dads against moms, and also getting the statistics out there. And what we've been discovering as advocates is that we were surprised when we began to meet one another that it's the criminal type and the domestic violence type and those type that are getting the custody of the children, or those that are willing to work with child protective services to drug up their kids or things of that nature. And one of the other aspects that we've learned is the fact that a good fit parent like yourself will do everything to fight for that child, and family court knows that, so they like the fact that you're going to keep coming back.
That's right.
And that's where we're seeing where the money
for that. I have a term for that. I call it a perpetually indentured litigant.
Yeah.
So you know that if you want to keep contact with your kid, you have to keep coming back to family court over years. It almost becomes like your new home, because if you don't log in every few months there, you'll lose your kid for one reason or another, because another petition will come down the way. You know the experience. You get pulled back into family court. There isn't more than maybe 3 months, 4 months that you're not in family court. Back and back and back and back.
I know it too well. It's a rotating door. I used to call it my second career. It's now my first.
Yeah.
Gary, is it okay? Well, we're on the air, but you are also a paralegal. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So you've done some of your own, I think a majority of your own work. And I kind of want to touch on that a little bit. But before I do, I wanted to ask you, so it's 2011, so you and your daughter have been suffering years of abuse. How many specific years have you been without each other? Because I know you spent a lot of time together. You raised her from birth. So where did
the first 7 years of her life, I was there every single day. I mean, I was a full-time dad, more full-time than maybe other dads, because I have a home business. And I was just there all the time, and Anya would with me when I worked. I mean, there was pretty much no time. We were inseparable. That there was no time that we were apart. I even would bring her out on jobs. I would go. I fix computers as a mainline, a regular source of income, and she'd come with me. She'd speak with the clients that I would go to, and they'd all be marveling at her intelligence and her verbosity and how articulate she was and smart, and they would just shower her with praise of how advanced and mature she was. So yeah, I mean, at the point I had mentioned earlier, when that petition was filed and I just lost custody overnight, it was a huge hit. It was like so shocking. And I was and to my child too, because shortly after that she couldn't see her dad. She started acting up. And she started fighting with her mother and fighting in school. And there was like a big ruckus all of a sudden. And, she kept screaming, "I want my dad. Where is dad? Why can't I see dad?" And everybody is saying, "Oh, you don't need your dad. He's busy. He can't see you right now." And they're like, she's like, "Why? Why can't I see my dad?" So after a bit of that, and she really got violent and hissing and biting and screaming. And so eventually, her mother brought her to a child psychiatrist, a county psychiatrist, and had her prescribed with antipsychotic medications and sedatives so that she wouldn't keep screaming for her father. So at that point, yeah, it worked, I guess, you know, she became more zombie-like. And then my ex, she went on a mission basically to pathologize what my daughter was like. I mean, my daughter was brilliant, but she said that she has an IQ of 76. My daughter has ability to converse in philosophy, and she said that she had autism and delusions and psychosis. So this is how she presented our daughter to the family court, and they just ate it up. I mean, the second they see, whoa, okay, so the child is developmentally disabled or something, they actually get more funding once that happens, and then they get more control, and then they feel like they have even more of a say-so in where they put the child or who they allow the child to see. So yeah, I mean, I was tossed into the pool of family court law, having known earlier federal civil rights law, basically, and habeas corpus law. And I've assisted a number of people with that, as well as filing a number of lawsuits myself against the government whenever they overstepped their bounds. So yeah, eventually I became familiar with family court law as well. And you were going to ask me, I think, about the more recent things that I've done.
Well, one of the things before we even lead to that, just pertaining to what you're speaking on now, and knowing this, I mean, this is, I would say, even common sense. Sorry, I have a little puppy here. I'll have to show the audience because he's kind of acting up. This way they know it's not me. I'm not just making weird sounds. Family court will do that to you. What I was going to say, Gary, is you had no due process. You did not have a trial. You were guilty before proven innocent, which is the opposite of what we're allowed in our country. I don't know what's up with this dog tonight. And I want to talk to you a little bit about that. What have they done about that since 2011? It is now 2017. Your daughter, your child, has been suffering all these years. And this is one of the things that a lot of people may tend to leave out. Because people that don't really know the crisis that's happening in America with our crazy family courts, and mind you, we should let the audience know that this is Ulster County Family Court that you're dealing with, and you're dealing with the same male judge that the majority of the people I interview are dealing with, although we've dealt with the others as well, with the same barbaric decisions. But your child is suffering traumatic injury, I'm sure post-traumatic stress disorder and diagnoses like that.
Well, yeah, I mean,
your child that's suffering here. So
if you consider that my child has had contact with me every single day of her life, and then the next day she's not allowed to see me at all. It's always going to be traumatic for a child who loves their parent. And you know, she loved her dad. We were inseparable. We would go places. We'd do things. We'd go to the pool, we'd go to movies, you know, everything we did together. And it was really, and then the next day, for months, I was unable to see her. And then slowly, it's supposedly an abundance of caution, but there was no reason for caution. The family court allowed me to see my own child for like a few hours once a week. And it's like, what on earth is going on here? And then I'm being posed in front of her as some kind of criminal, or somehow I'm dangerous to her or something. And my daughter is completely confused. That's my dad. I love him so much. He's never hurt me. We've only had good times together. Why is everybody saying that I can't see him, that he's scary all of a sudden or something, you know? And yeah, eventually when I was forced into seeing her only in supervised visitation, and initially I had that 8 hours, and then they chipped it down to only supervised visitation. And then they have this place where you're literally patted down by a police officer with a pistol, and your child sees you patted down like a criminal, and before you can visit them. So yeah, it went down very rapidly from full fatherhood to 8 hours on Sunday to 1 hour a week for virtually 2 years to nothing. I mean, when there was a 6-month period when I did not see my daughter at all, at the behest of my ex. And then I began seeing her 1 hour again with a therapist now, not just a regular supervised visit. So with a therapist that they charged me $160 for 40 minutes just to see my kid.
Oh my God.
I know. And it was under these extremely constrained conditions with a clipboard, watching everything we say. That's not a visitation. You know, that's not certainly not parenting. You don't get to go any place with your kid. You don't have it. You're just a mannequin, basically. You walk in there, smile, and you don't have your child anymore. It's just a travesty of what you were. So yeah, currently, to bring you up to date, I haven't seen my child for 1.5 years. I've seen her the last time was March of 2016. So throughout 2016, I filed another petition, right? Every 3 months, you have to go back to family court, right? Well, I filed a petition because my ex would not let me see our child. And it literally took months and months and months and months before it even came before the court. And all this time, I don't see my child. There's no penalty. My ex just, what's the big deal? And then finally, we get a little bit resolved. And, what did I win? I did win that petition by settlement. Now I'm going to see my child, hopefully on the 17th of August this year.
So let's talk about that, because that's something that is very encouraging to our viewing audience. I want to talk about your federal, but before I get to that point, I just want to make one point here, because I see this constantly. I see the pattern of abuse. I've court watched Ulster County and other states, West Virginia, you name it. I've been in there. I see the pattern of abuses throughout our country, but Ulster County, and every expert I talk to says Ulster County is the worst.
Wow, really?
Okay. Yes, and I know we have the worst, and everybody I talk to says their state's the worst until they come here and see what's going on here and how barbaric it is. However, I do want to say, because it's systematic throughout the county of Ulster, and that's clear. Yeah. But right. I do want to say their excuse for protecting children from protective parents is some kind of a made up, fantasy world, something that they're picking on, which we never can actually find it, because a specific judge there will make these over the top things that happen that never actually happened to save his ass for a while, I guess, or to do whatever he does for his barbaric decisions. Right. But on top of that, and experts will say this over and over again, scientific and social science research and psychologists and therapists and the like will all say the same thing. The damages to the children, even if there was a slight problem, yep, the damages to the children are exceedingly worse.
The remedy that they provide is worse than anything that supposedly was wrong in the first place.
Right, and then they don't protect the children from real danger. Okay, they don't. But go ahead and talk about that wonderful federal and what you've been doing and what's been happening.
I'll try to put that in a nutshell, because it's so much. But basically, okay, in the process of my my family court hearings, this judge decided to put a order of protection on me against my child. Yep. And
he does.
The first thing that you would think is, okay, you must have done something wrong.
Right.
Well, I'm like, well, what did I do wrong? I couldn't tell. Basically, it came about from my daughter asking me for a birthday gift, and I had no order of protection at that point. I went to the school at the end of the day to give her birthday gift. I didn't see her, and that was the end of it. I didn't get to give her the gift, and that was the end of it. And there was no incident or anything. So my ex then files a petition for a restraining order, and the judge grants it. And during that hearing, I say, Your Honor, you're issuing this order of protection. Could you please tell me why you're issuing it? What is the grounds? What's the basis? And he literally says on the record, I am not going to tell you.
I know exactly him.
I'm not going to tell you. Now, that is a violation of due process. I mean, to issue a restraining order like that wipes away so many of your constitutional rights just in one hearing. And nobody addresses these things because, you know, they just don't want to. But I did. I had to. So I appealed that order of protection, and I appealed it through the various state courts, all the way up to the top one in New York State, and they denied me. And I said, okay, now I'm going to get to where I actually want to go, which is into federal court. And there I wanted to address the unconstitutional imposition of an order of protection on a habeas corpus. And in habeas corpus, the federal courts are empowered to correct whatever state orders against you that were imposed upon in violation of the US Constitution. So I was there for, I don't know, a couple months, and then they said basically that I was not in custody, which is a prerequisite requirement to going in for habeas corpus. And the judge there said, just because I am being prohibited from seeing my child doesn't mean that I'm in custody, which is not what I said in my petition.
Right, they twisted it.
Right. I said in my petition that because of the order of protection, I can't go out into the town. I can't go into the same stores. If I have reservations, I have to drop them. I can't visit the common areas the municipality offers, like the pool or the Shakespearean plays or the holiday festivities that are hosted by, because she is going to be there. My daughter's going to be there. And if I accidentally bump into my daughter in the street in Woodstock, I will be arrested and charged. So that's an exact example of where habeas corpus is appropriate.
Or there's an opportunity for that to happen. It's actually illegal to arrest you if you're in public with an order of protection, because you can't read minds. You don't know where someone's going to show up.
They can presumptively do it.
They could presumptively do it. Absolutely. You never know. You never know.
You never know.
You can't trust anything in Ulster County, New York. You can't trust anything or anybody.
Presumptively, if you're in the vicinity of someone you have an order of protection against, they can call the police and say, he's right here. I want him arrested right now, and the police will have.
And I tell you, I've had 11. I'm on my 11th, and he would show up at public places, and they never did anything. And he'd harass me with people with him.
Well,
so it's just the luck of the draw, but it's whatever.
The point is that
you have to be careful.
The liability is there, and that's what
the liability
gives me the right to say, hey, my freedoms and my liberties are constrained here, and that is the opening of the door to getting federal review. Because unless your liberties are not constrained, if they are constrained, you have the right to federal review. So the whole issue at that point was, are my liberties constrained such a way that the general public could do something that I could not do? And if that was true, then I had the right to get habeas corpus relief. However, they're afraid of what it means if they did give me that, because it would act as precedent for so many people like us.
That's what we want.
Happen, yeah. In any case, so they denied me at the district court level, and I went up to the appellate court level, the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, the Federal Circuit Court. And I filed my appellate brief there. And in short order, the opposing side, which is the state of New York, not even my ex anymore, because now it becomes a state issue, they're the ones who would be prosecuting me if a restraining order ever brought me to jail or in front of a court. And they said basically that my appeal should be dismissed even before it's heard, because I did not apply for a certificate of appealability. What that means is, in order to go from habeas corpus into the appellate court, you have to file for an extra document if you're in prison or you're in custody. Okay, so that's why I didn't file it, because I'm neither in prison or in custody. But the whole question on appeal was, am I in custody for habeas corpus purposes enough to be heard by a federal court? So I kind of said, listen, they're saying that I need this document that says I'm in custody in order to proceed. So they are essentially acceding to my point that I am in custody for those purposes.
Brilliant.
and so the win that I got, it's not a complete win of the appeal, but it's an intermediate appeal that the court just denied their request to dismiss the appeal, and basically said what I was saying, that for habeas corpus purposes and a certificate of appealability, I am in custody for those purposes of habeas corpus. Now that's kind of confusing because doesn't that mean I win the whole appeal?
You would think.
You would think. But who knows what kind of distinction they're going to make. They're going to say, well, yeah, you were for that motion, but you're not for appeal. Who knows? So
Well, I mean, it's
nowadays.
good. It's
Oh,
really
it's good. Oh, yeah, it's much better than bad. It's very good. It's not a win entirely, but it seems to be setting up for one. So that's where I sit right now.
That's awesome. And coming from a paralegal and an advocate, you've kicked some butt there, and I'm very proud of you. And it's awesome, and it will set the precedence for others as this moves along. We have to chip at it as we can. That's something that I'm seeing when they try to come up with an argument. I mean, you know, you're right. We're all right. We're all 100% right. We couldn't be more right. You know, even our laws are clear. The more I'm learning, our laws are there. It's They're not following our laws.
Okay, that's what's weird about it. The family court laws are not that bad. It's how they deal with them that's awful. That they break and they restrict and they don't follow them and they just say, oh, that's just a guideline when it's a mandatory law. It's just insane. I mean, the laws are okay, and generally speaking, the laws are okay, but it's the ones who interpret it and the ones who enforce it that read it and distort what is actually written there.
I have to say, Ulster County Family Court, and I've said this before, first of all, you got a bunch of public defenders in there, and I'm not putting down public defenders because there's good and bad and everything, right. But the ones in that court, one before they walked in, because it's a circus, it's a joke, it's not real. I'd be embarrassed of myself if I won things before I even tried. That's right. Where's the integrity in that? You know, it's just a set up little game. I don't know how these people have any kind of, they don't have a conscience, so I don't know how they function in life. I'm going to keep my mouth shut right now because the things I know about all of them, that's going to come out, it's going to be exposed. It's going to be exposed. That's all I'm going to say about that. The things that we have on all of them. It's foolish what they're doing. It's absolutely foolish on their part. It'd be a lot better for them if they did the right thing, because it's going to be a lot worse on them for not with what we have. And we are a major army, huge. They have no idea what they're dealing with. I did want you to kind of let the audience know how they can see, because there's a couple of different parts you've got, and I actually lost my little thing here, so I'm going to have you tell them the amount of viral hits you have on the interrogation at CPS in Ulster County. I've watched that. Everybody that sees it cringes. It is barbaric, animalistic. I shouldn't even say animalistic because animals are wonderful, but you get my point.
I do.
It is the most barbaric, ignorant thing I have ever seen. Coming from my sister's an international bestseller now, you know, holistic practitioner. And if she's heard this woman and she just like can't get over how ignorant this woman is, and this engaging conversation that going on there.
Basically, they try to suck you into their little world, and they don't really have to try too hard. They just have to make the vaguest of allegations. And the allegations they made against me was I brought my kid to McDonald's, that I weighed my child on our bathroom scale.
Woo!
Yeah.
Naughty.
I let her have soda in the morning, you know, things like this. And then they said, oh, that's a shaming tactic, and you can't feed her this. And, you know, they pretty much winged it, anything they could just to pull me in. And they can come up with anything, and that's what they basically did. So what had happened was my daughter was being given this drug by her mother, and her mother never told me about it. So when my daughter told me that she was taking a pill every day, I was very nervous. And I was like, well, what is it, Ani? I mean, what does it say? What is it supposed to do? And she said, I don't know. They didn't tell me. They just gave it to me. It makes me feel funny. I have nightmares and I can't sleep. And she's gaining weight. And I'm like, well, where do I go? I didn't know what doctor. I couldn't talk to her mother. I couldn't do anything. So I tried to figure it out because, you know, your child's being drugged up, and what do you do? So I asked her, and she saw me nervous, and she said, I don't know. I'll try to find out. I don't know. She goes home and she says, Daddy's nervous about whatever you're giving me, and I don't want to take it anymore. And so her mother said, oh, no, you have to take it. And then there was a big ruckus. So that's another thing that they were saying that I shouldn't have done, is try to find out what drugs her mother is giving her. You know, I was completely in the dark. I didn't know. So, then they pulled me in for this interview. I call it an interrogation. And I knew that there was something up, there was something strange. So I brought in a camera just to make sure that they didn't say anything that I said that I didn't say, and vice versa. I could prove anything that they did say. You know, I just want honesty here. And yeah, I recorded it, and eventually I put that on YouTube, and eventually that went viral, and it's close to 500,000 views right now on YouTube.
500,000 views. Good.
Yeah. And if anybody wants to see it, all you got to do is Google CPS interrogation. CPS interrogation results on the first hit of my video being shown.
And just know you're going to be very angry when you watch it, because it is
It's triggering.
one of those things that the ignorance is beyond, but and then the damages that they're causing in their child protective services. Yeah, okay. Anyway, you have another video interview done that I watched where it talks about, you're very thoroughly talking about your case. Did you want to direct the audience to that one too, so they can kind of
Oh, you mean the second video that I had?
It's the Long Island Reporter, I think, or I forget.
Oh.
That was a very good one.
That one's a little bit harder to get to as far as Googling it, but yeah, there's two of them. One is called the FIT, Families in Transition, Father's Right, or Father Not Seeing His Kid. Let me see what exactly would be FIT, Father, Child. Yeah, you see, that's kind of harder to find. It's on YouTube also, but it's a complete interview of myself in an environment where I'm being interviewed like on a talk show, pretty much.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a very good one, and it talks about how you were exonerated, and now years have still passed, and you and your daughter are still being accused by the same judge, which the fact that he showed up at his own Supreme Court really made me sick to my stomach. Did you want to talk about that a little bit?
Oh, you mean the first time?
And not his Supreme Court. I'm sorry, our Supreme Court. You appealed him, and he showed up. I mean, I've never heard. Is that legal? You're a paralegal. I have 5 retained lawyers, and they all said that is illegal.
It's a conflict of interest. I mean, he's not supposed to show up in another hearing for something he's already hearing in another case. That's a conflict of interest. I mean, how could you ever get a different result if you're having the same judge convening over in another action that's related to the first one? So no, it's a conflict of interest, but it didn't make too much difference to him. He just showed up anyway and said, no, I think we can do this elsewhere, and your petition is denied. Basically, it was a habeas corpus as well, because there was no reason why I shouldn't see my kid at that point. And he didn't want me to see my kid. I don't know. And he wouldn't say why.
Well, he doesn't want this to happen for you. I mean, it's clear as day to me, and for all the people that he's done this to, because then his job, you know, he doesn't have as many cases to have to deal with. Well, and if he makes it right, he won't be bringing in as much money. And the bottom line comes down to, he also, the biggest one of all at this point, is he certainly doesn't want to be exposed for what he's been doing. Then that's where we come in. So
well, if I get any play on this appeal, everybody will know what he's doing.
Oh, everybody will know what he's doing, because he will be seen and known for who he is. As a matter of fact, there's a lot that's been happening behind the scenes. His own people don't like him, and I'm not gonna say too much right here, but we have cracked a dent in his career, and we're not done yet. And the bottom line comes down to this: my prayers for this man is that he starts to see what it's like by his own life happening to him, what he's done to so many others, 100-fold. Because, and he's hurt a lot of people. He's hurt a lot of mothers and children. He's hurt a lot of fathers and children. I don't know how he sleeps at night, and I don't know how his little staff does either, but
they do.
Disgusting.
They process us. They process like we're factory components. That's how it comes.
It's disgusting. It's disgusting.
They don't look at us as people. They look at us as nodules and modules that just have to be processed like assembly line. They don't see the heartbreak they cause.
Right.
They don't see the grief.
They do. They don't care.
They don't care.
They don't care.
When I say emotionally see, they don't care. Emotionally see.
They do. They know. They don't care about the heart.
They don't care.
They don't. They no. That's true.
It's torn up more families than anybody.
I call them subhuman. Anyway.
You just tear up families and tear up parents and children from each other. It's disgusting.
Yeah. It's heartbreaking, it's disgusting, and Gary, because we're gonna have to wrap it, I'd like you to just look into the camera, and if you have anything you want to say to your daughter or to anybody out there that doesn't really understand what's happening to family court, if you have anything on your heart that you'd like to just share with the audience, please take this time to do that.
Well, if you get sucked into that vortex, you have to keep your head together. You can't get too emotional. It's the hardest thing in the world. They want you to get emotional, then you have played into their hands. You have to keep your head together, and you have to have a lot of drive, a lot of perseverance, because they will beat you down. They will threaten you that you'll never see your kid again. They will try to get you where no civil court action should ever get to, your relationship with your own child. And it's very difficult, but that is the state of things now. And eventually, you know, with activism like what I do and what Francesca does, it will get better. I just hope so, and I think it will.
I believe so, Gary, and I thank you so much for being here. And we hope to have you back on again. And I just continue to pray for you and your daughter that case will be won 100%, because it needs to be. So thank you again for being here.
By the end of this year, hopefully we'll find out.
Good. Thank you again.
Thank you.
And I just want to thank the viewing audience. Welcome. Thank you for watching our show, Punished for Protecting. If you'd like to reach us, you can get us on the internet at punished4beingaparent.com. You can watch some of the episodes there, and we are also airing in several counties and several states. If you want to sponsor us, you can sponsor us at your local community channels. It is free. It doesn't cost you anything. It would just get all our episodes showing, and we would love to cover the entire map. So if you're a business owner or an advocate or someone who just wants to sponsor our program, please contact me. If you want to be on the show, if you have a story to tell and you want to be on our show, you can be a domestic violence expert, you could be an attorney, you can be a judge, a retired judge. I hate to say victim, so a survivor. Please contact us. Again, it's www.punish4beingaparent.com. There's a TV section, and you can contact us through that. Thank you again, and have a great evening.